That's what I want. No? Yes? No? What's the password? All right, everyone, welcome to the June 12th Finance and Audit Committee, our regular meeting. This is the official call to order. We have the public opportunity to discuss matters of public interest within committee scope, including items on or not on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any speaker cards?
There are no speakers this evening.
All right, thank you. So Chair will entertain a motion for consent.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second.
First and seconded, please call the roll.
Director Monk?
Aye.
Director Wood?
Aye.
Director Jones?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much. Now we go to our come to our presentation item by CFO McFarland. Welcome to the podium. We have our financial report through April 14. It is a receive and file and no actions required, but we always got to hear the numbers. Not on.
Oh,
There we go.
okay. This is for our 8 months ended April 30th of 2014. All right, our cash balances, we are up about $7 million from the prior year. This is all of our funds, and about $3 million of that is up in the general fund, and our capital facility fund is down since we've been spending down the development fees, and our pension bond fund savings is up. So that's as shown on page 5 of your written report that was in your packet. In addition, I'd like to mention that we, as of 4/30, had $6 million in our post-retirement medical trust fund, SERPT. Okay, looking at our reserves, I'll say that this graph represents the general fund only, and we have in our reserve fund, we're also higher than the prior years. When we're below the the line in the middle where it has the dollar sign, that's when we're in the dry period funding. We've received most of our taxes for this year. We've received 98% of our taxes. So then you see the arrow going up, and then it ends up coming back down because that is the money that's funding the last 2 months of the fiscal year. So the numbers that you see on this, on the box that shows our ratio of our reserves to our total budgeted expenditures, we started the year at 10.3%. Right now, we're at 25% because we have that in, all of the property tax money that came in that will be spent down to complete the fiscal year. This 11% that's shown on the, as of the projection as of June 30th, 2014, that's the theoretical projection based on what's in the mid-year budget. Based on the analysis that we've done since then, we should have about 2.4 million more in revenues, or 2.4 million total in exceeding revenues exceeding expenditures. So what that brings us to is about 11.9% is what we're calculating now as our projected reserve based on updates to the mid-year budget. And I would just mention that the two things that we're seeing the changes between mid-year and what we're forecasting now is that we have about $800,000 more in supplemental taxes, which is the properties that have changed hands and get a billing for their taxes after the regular tax roll was set in place. And then we do anticipate about $500,000 more in deployment revenue. And we already have accounted for the expenditures. Some of this is revenue from the prior year, kind of a catch-up thing. So it actually does come down to the bottom line when it typically offsets revenue and expenditures. Okay, talking about our medic cost recovery, you can see that we are significantly over what we were last year, 24%, or $4.8 million. Year-to-date revenue of $24.5 million. That is solely attributed, primarily, I guess, attributed to our single-role paramedic program that was put in place last year, but was only in place for a few months, and this year it has been in place for 10 months, where last year it had only been in place one of the months, ending in April 30th. Community risk reduction. We do show that the revenue is up a little bit from last year, but in both years it trailed the budget significantly. We did reduce our budget this year in community risk reduction versus the prior year, but we've only collected 47% of the revenue, and we're over 80% done with the year. There are two reasons for that, and our expectations are that we will meet budget. One reason is the inspection work primarily started in the latter part of the year because there were some changes in the inspection fees that were pending, so the work began after the first of the year. So it's kind of backloaded, the revenue in the year. In addition, we'd had a transition from one billing company to the other, and it's taken a little bit to get that up and running the way it needs to be. So for both reasons, we're trailing, but we do believe that we will meet our budgeted number by the end of the fiscal year, or at least have earned it and show it as a receivable and collect it in a timely way to allow us to record it in the current fiscal year. And then on our property taxes, we are at $110 million. It's $7.3 million, or 7% higher than the prior year. We have, besides the changes in assessed values, we have factored in things having to do with refunds, and so that actually, since we are anticipating less refunds this year than last year, is why we actually have a 7% higher. We do, like I said, I do anticipate that we will exceed budget for property taxes And in total for supplemental, we are year-to-date at 1.4 million. We actually had 700,000 in our budget, so we're double what we thought. And I think probably another 100,000 is what I'm anticipating through the end of the fiscal year. So in total, we're at 146.9 million, 12.6 million higher than the previous year, so 9.3% difference.
I just, if I can, I want to make sure that I bring some clarity to that picture. We received large chunks of retroactive one-time money, GEMT money, that has played into that number being inflated as high as it is. And in regards to the property tax issue, specifically relating to property tax recapture, you remember that our number of recaptured dollars potential out there was $19 million, around $19 million that we were supposed to get back eventually in the economy. That has dropped to $13 million. So we've already lost about $5 million in recapture on a permanent basis that will never come back. So as we look at these numbers, as encouraging as they are, they can be somewhat misleading in the fact that a lot of it is one-time money that came in that was retroactive. It was not ongoing revenue. And though our taxes are doing better in some aspects, we still have lost now an additional $5 million on a permanent basis. And we still have about $3 million in assessments that are sitting out there on appeals a year to reduce our taxes even further. So I do think that we're slowly but surely going the right direction, but those numbers look large and can be exceedingly misleading, and I wanted to make sure that I clarified that.
Thank you, Chief, and I think that's a kind of a good introduction to the fact that we have our property tax consultant from HDL at our regular board meeting that begins at 6 o'clock. And so she will be talking about a lot of those things in more depth. And because it is such a large part of our budget, we thought it was important to bring her here. I'll also add that on the one-time money that the chief was referring to, we did speak to that at our last meeting. Our GEMT money is in the 10-month year-to-date figures. So that was $2.1 million that was retroactive, and in addition, we had $545,000 that was the current year GEMT money. Okay, so going on to labor, the labor costs of $107.5 million. We did have that net of our concessions of $6.9 million, the concessions being the cost sharing on both pensions and medical. And so that is significant, so I continue to emphasize it. Our labor costs through April were at 79.4% of the labor budget. I did go back to the payroll team and we took a look at it to see, does that mean that we're going to come in a little under budget? And we don't believe so. And the reason we don't believe so is because we have an academy some academies that were happening, and then when they end, it kind of backloads the labor cost towards the end of the year. So that's why we really think that our mid-year numbers that we adopted for labor are pretty darn close. And so we'll know within 2 months, but that's basically what we believe at the current time. Our constant staffing overtime, meaning the overtime that's paid so that we can make sure that every position is filled on our 24-hour services. And so that's at 78.9%. That's one of our indicators that if that gets out of whack, it could very easily make us go over budget. So we continue to watch that number. So it looks in good shape as well. And service and supply costs were 67.2% of the budget. And so again, not everything is spent evenly during the year. I'm optimistic that maybe we'll come in under budget on service and supplies, but I can't really find any of my division heads that believe they're not going to spend all their money. So they only have 3 more weeks, since we're already into June, so. Anyway, so at least we know we're not in trouble on any of these, so everything looks good. So just to look at what the bottom line looks like right now, current versus prior year, we're at $6.2 million better than we were at this point last year. And again, the portion of that is that one-time money. And then when we look at current year versus budget, I mean, we only look as good as we do look on that number because of the fact that we have received revenue that has to cover the last 2 months of the year as well. So, so anyway, that's the bottom line, but versus budget and versus prior year. Okay, on development fees, we're at $937,000. It's 78.1% of the budget. I have taken a look at what May looked like and what the first part of June looked like, and we may very well meet budget. I don't see anything large coming in that would make us exceed budget, and in fact, we have, in the last 3 weeks, we need to collect $137,000 to meet budget. So in your packet on pages 13 through 15, where you have the information on what we collect every month, you can kind of get a feel that it's possible we can meet budget, but we may end up slightly under. But, you know, it's not a number that's easy to predict since it has to do with development and the timing of when their projects go forward. So I think we have a reasonable number, and that will come reasonably close to that. And then I just wanted to mention the capital facilities fund and the borrowing that took place recently. It's not recorded in the financial statements through 4/30 because it just happened. On Monday, we did receive the $2.3 million that was funding quite a bit of equipment, ambulances, command vehicles, and the largest being the aerial truck. And so that came in. We repaid ourselves for the stuff that we had advanced. The aerial truck is on a 10-month contract where they're building it for us, and so that money was advanced to the manufacturer. We were able to get it all done in time to be able to take advantage of a $35,000 discount from Pierce Manufacturing, and we got a great rate of 1.88%. We also had the board approve a temporary interfund loan between the general fund and the capital facilities fund for $1 million. So that was repaid. So we've got everything in order for the end of the fiscal year, and our debt service on that is about $252,000 a year, and it's on a 7-year repayment. Any questions? Okay. Okay, this is my last slide. We are $18 million of open grants, of which $5 million is unspent. Our two largest being our SAFER grant that goes through May of 2015, and then the tail end of the simulator grant. And in your packet on page 22, is the full detail of all the grants and what we spent in which year and what's remaining. Okay, that ends my report, unless there's any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions, fellow directors? All right. Rhonda, I have a quick, it's more of a housekeeping one. Where is the, you referenced the money put aside for retiree health care? This was earlier in your presentation. What line is that on?
That is not on any line,
Okay.
and that's why we footnoted on page 5 of your report.
It's footnoted on page 5?
At the bottom,
All right, I just wanted to know
where
where to
there's a
find it.
note down there at the bottom.
Oh, I have 5 out. Oh, you mean the super small print that even with my glasses might be challenging? Thanks, Rhonda.
Hey, I have a young staff, what can I say?
Oh, Lord. Oh, boy,
I
just
would
wait.
Yeah, in order to answer that, I think we need to make that more prominent in the next layout, because that's been asked for before by the board. They want to be able to see that. It is an impressive number that's getting bigger, and so I think that we need to make that. I can't read it,
Okay.
and, you
Let
know.
me just say why it's presented separately from the rest of the information, but we certainly can make it, the font bigger so it's more readable. We weren't trying to obscure it by any means. We're actually quite proud of it.
Oh, yeah, I am too. That's what I'm saying. You mentioned on
Yeah.
the cash balance sheet, and I didn't see
It's a
it.
trust fund, and
Right.
since, the trust fund is, once the money is deposited into it, it's not part of our financial statements. We do show it in the audited financial statements as a source, that can be used against the liability, but it's not part of our balance sheet, so to
Well, let's
speak.
find a good place to follow up on Chief's suggestion of have it listed somewhere so we can
Okay.
readily say,
Well-
yay.
Right, well, and that's why I added the note, but it is not being as effective as I intended it to be, so we'll fix that.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All right. Are there any other questions or follow-ups or comments, Chief, CFO? All right,
All right,
thank you
thank
very
you.
much. Now, I just covered up our agenda sheet, but we're pretty close. All right, are there any agenda items anyone would wish to put on for next time? Okay, just contact myself or CFO McFarland for taking care of that if and when issues come up. And our next meeting date is July 10th at 5 PM. The meeting's hereby adjourned. Thank you.